Final presentation of this hour, we have the amazing Kat Warboys, Head of Marketing at HubSpot Australia, New Zealand. We'll be talking about the global trend of one-to-one interactions. Kat is responsible for growing HubSpot's business in Australia and New Zealand and manages everything from demand generation to sales enablement and customer advocacy. Wow, what an amazing role, Kat. So joining Kat after a presentation, we have two additional experts, and might I say, what amazing experts we have. So we have Sohan from No Standing Digital, and as well as Nick Ranger, an SEO specialist at Studio Hawk. Interesting company. Nick Ranger is an SEO specialist overseeing digital strategy, data analysis, content and site architecture for our large enterprise and local businesses, and joins up part of my team. Sohan successfully brought major brands to market and built new brands into multi-million-dollar entities through Australia in the fashion, music and lifestyle entities. Amazing, amazing panel, guys. With experience across B2B and B2C organizations, Kat's going to show us today how to build a conversational strategy. Kat, please take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to at least attempt to breach the topic in 15 minutes. So it's really great to be here. I have been quite ambitious of how much I want to fit in this time. So I will just crack straight into the agenda. I'm going to be essentially covering off what a conversational strategy is and why we should be so excited by it. And if you haven't come across the term before, you'd be totally forgiven for not knowing exactly what I'm referring to. I'm essentially talking about messaging channels. So those off-site channels like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, even Slack, and your on-site channels that you can control on your website. So really live chat and chatbots as well. I will then go through some tips on how to get started about how you might implement this for your own business. So first up, what is the big deal about conversational strategy? For myself, and I think many of my colleagues at HubSpot, we're really excited by it because we see it as being a huge solve for a big issue that's facing many businesses today. So for context, HubSpot did a survey where we spoke to thousands of consumers, and from that survey, we found quite a few, as you would imagine, insights, but the one I really want to talk to you about today and to really plant the seed in your head is this idea that consumer expectations have never been quite as high as they are today. So referring exactly to the data in the survey that we ran, we found that 90% of the consumers consider an immediate response when reaching out to your organization to be important, if not very important. So this was a trend we saw across the survey, across marketing and sales and customer success. So immediate is quite a high bar that's been set for most brands to actually follow up with. I think if we, really think about our own consumer-driven lives, we want the clothes that we've ordered to be delivered on the same day. We want our food to arrive faster. When our systems go down, we want them back up just as quickly. Things have definitely become a lot more immediate, urgent, and now obsessed. And the same is for your consumers as well, right? These are the things that you want, and it's what your consumers want from your business. They want you always on, always there, always knowing who they are, and essentially ready to help. Most businesses, sadly, are falling behind with this, and this is really prevalent when we look at some of the data, especially that Twilio ran. So they ran a survey where they spoke to 6,000 consumers across 7 countries, so truly global data, and found that just under 90% of consumers do want to connect with your business through these messaging tools, and yet less than half of us are actually equipped to do that. Now, these stats can feel a little bit daunting or negative, or you might be wondering, how do you even take a channel like messaging, which is designed for one-on-one, communication, and how do you scale that? The thing to remember with this is that the key tenets of communication have remained the same and will always be the same. When people interact with your business, we know that they want those interactions to be helpful, to be personal, and to be authentic as well. Kind of like this example that I have here. So that's it. Just a helpful, personal, authentic communication in a channel that we're not really used to. And I bet you that was automated completely as well. So this is conversational marketing. It's not limited to marketing either. I think it often gets siloed to a marketing channel, but it's actually conversational sales and customer service too, as we're going to see in some examples coming up. So that kind of brings me to the section where we're going to look at some of those tips for implementing a conversational strategy if this is something you want to experiment for your own business. And I'll try and give some data examples from experiments that we ran at HubSpot with these channels as well. So step one, as with any well-executed project, we want to start with a clearly defined goal. Now that might sound a little bit obvious, but there's a lot of people that talk to myself, colleagues at HubSpot, who are like really excited that they've got a new live chat functionality and they're going to put it out on the website across every single page and just see what comes through. That's a really bad idea for a number of reasons. You'll probably damage the experience for your users and the results that you're seeing before you see them improved. A better approach, of course, is to really narrow down what part of the business you think some of these tools can help you with and set goals around that, and just start with one to begin with. It's easy to get overwhelmed with this strategy. So the diagram that I have on the screen is something called a flywheel, and it's how we at HubSpot view business growth. So at the attract stage, this is predominantly the marketer's domain. It's how we share information with our subscribers and our audience. It's how we generate leads and learn more about them to get them ready to speak to our sales team. So these are some of the goals you might want to consider at the attract stage for these messaging tools for your business. So here's a really good example from Arsenal Football Club, something I'm not going to pretend to be creditable on. But essentially, they decided to use Facebook Messenger as their channel to send communication and updates to their audience, things like the results of matches, information on their players. All we're really doing here in this scenario is allowing our audience to have more control over which channels they want to be communicated with by you. We ran this as an experiment ourselves at HubSpot, where we decided to give our subscribers the option to receive updates from us, to continue to receive them via email or through Messenger. And as you can see, the people that are enrolled in the Messenger chat, their engagement rates, things like the open rate and the click-through rate of the content we were sending was significantly higher. But for us, the ultimate goal, the reason why we send any communications, is to generate marketing qualified leads, people that are ready to speak to our sales team. And that metric, which is what our business really cares about, was significantly improved when we were sending updates through Messenger instead of email. I'm sure many people dialing in today would love more leads in their business, and these channels are fantastic for generating leads as well. Again, if you pair it back to the premise of this, we're really removing the friction that a long form creates, especially on a mobile device, and as a result, seeing better conversion rates because we're improving that experience. So again, at HubSpot, we decided to test this. This was about 2 years ago when this was really kind of an emerging channel, especially for B2B. And we decided to run a webinar, and we did some Facebook paid advertising to get registrations for that. And we did 2 variants of that ad. Now, the first Facebook ad would take you through the normal conversion path. So you'd go through to a landing page, you'd fill out a form, normally like too long a form, and get your confirmation email afterwards. In the second ad variation, instead of going to a landing page, the Facebook ad just opened up a Messenger chat. And pretty much the same questions were asked as what was on the form, but just in a way more conversational and interactive way. And again, with the data, you can see that the submission rate, the registrations that we got for the webinar were improved. But again, the metrics the business really cares about was how much was it costing us to acquire these leads. And we found that the variation where we're using Messenger enabled us to acquire leads and MQLs at a much cheaper rate than the landing page route. So really interesting for lead gen. Maybe lead generation isn't a problem for your business. Maybe you just need to learn more about the leads you currently have, so we can follow up with them with more relevant products and services. Sephora do a really good job of this with their chat widget, where they're just trying to find out more about the person visiting the site. So they have a broad range of products. It's really hard to identify, what somebody might be coming to the website to look for. So they start off super broad. Are you here looking for product reviews or tips? I selected tips, and then they really narrow it down. Okay, so is it body? Is it face, it's contouring, get down to what I'm looking for, and I walk away with this great guide on how to do contouring, and Sephora now have some really rich information about me, and what we hope would happen is that they follow up with products as they relate to contouring. And that kind of brings us nicely into the engage stage, because this is really your sales territory, right? This is using these tools to help your consumers get connected with a sales rep or even complete a purchase through many of these tools. So connecting with a salesperson is a great tactic for on-site chat in particular. Because if you imagine somebody's on your website, they're checking out your pricing page, that's a pretty high intent that they're looking to spend money with you. How helpful would it be then if a little chatbot popped up and asked them if they had any questions about the pricing, and even looped in a real salesperson if the conversation was progressing. Now you want that part where the chatbot gives way to a real person to happen automatically, instantly, because of data that exists like this. So 35 to 50% of sales go to the vendor who responds first. So the best way to think about this is if I'm in the market for your product or your service, I go to your website, I'm trying to find a way to get in touch, and you've got a contact us form. I fill that out, but I'm waiting for somebody to get back to me. I go to your competitor's site because I'm doing my due diligence, and they have a live chat functionality. In my experience, I can be connected with a real person in less than 2 minutes. The data tells us I'm more likely to go with a competitor because of their ability to respond to me faster. Now, if you're thinking that's not a problem for us, we have really fast response rates on our Contact Us form. That's really cool, but you would definitely be in the minority because 90% of companies are taking more than 5 minutes to respond to a sales inquiry. So as we learned earlier, people want an immediate response. 5 minutes is just far too long. Some organizations and companies, especially in the e-commerce space, can have a lot of fun with actually taking payment through these messaging tools. So there's many purchases that we're used to sort of self-purchasing with, everyday items like clothing, those kind of items. So, it's not foreign for us to actually engage with the bot and end up making a payment for these products through messaging tools. And it's a much more seamless experience as well. For us, and maybe yourselves as well, your product or your service might require a far more consultative approach, and therefore you wouldn't really ever take payment through these channels. We don't at HubSpot, but we have found that people that engage with us through chat or come to us and convert through chat do close at our second highest rate as opposed to any other channels. So that's second to an inbound sales call, somebody literally picking up the phone and telling us they want to buy. And finally, the delight stage. This is really about after marketing have done their job, sales have brought the customer on board. How do we delight? How do we create moments of delight and help our customers, remain with us and become loyal ones? So a great and obvious first use case here is to improve customer support. And it's probably a personal favorite of mine because I see lots of quick wins and low-hanging fruit with this. So if you think this might be a goal for your business to start with these messaging tools, here's some tips about how you might approach that. So chatbots do a really good job at taking care of the really easy stuff. So if you think about your frequently asked questions that, if real people are currently having to use their time to answer really simple questions, a chatbot can take away a lot of that manual effort by building that into the logic. It can even point them into the direction of other resources, knowledge bases, any articles that you have that might help that customer self-serve their inquiry. Of course, sometimes cases are a bit more complex than what a chatbot can help with. And again, just as you before wanted to bring in a real salesperson, you can loop in a real customer support agent to help and take that support case to a more in-depth level. Another really fun one for e-commerce, again, is increasing lifetime value. If you think about, I visit the website and the chatbot can tell me about products in my wish list that are now back in stock, or offers related to products I've previously bought. Loads of fun use cases there. B2B, we just have to be really more conscious about what is it that our customers find valuable and helps them stick. I know at HubSpot for us, the more educated our customers are, the more likely they are to stay with us for longer. So that could be offering complimentary training or services through these tools to them. And then lastly, this is kind of the advanced goal, I would say, is to think about how you can use these tools to really remove key friction points for your audience. So I think London Transport are a really, really good example of this. What they do is use Messenger to give you updates on your daily commute. So, 7 a.m. you're brushing your teeth and you get a Facebook alert to say that your normal commute is disrupted and here's an alternative route to work. That is just helpful. That is just making my life a lot easier and is a really smart way of how brands are going out of their way to enhance kind of the day-to-day of their consumers. So requires you to really know your audience to do something like that one. Step 2 is about choosing the channel. Once you have your goal, what channel is best suited to help you achieve that? So I've talked to a number of these today. There's really your off-site ones and then your on-site chatbots as well. So things to consider when choosing which channel, can it help you meet the goal that you've set out to? Is it one that your audience actually uses? The best way to figure this out is just to ask. The way that we did in our email, we asked if they wanted to receive communications with us in Facebook Messenger, and you'll be surprised how many people are actually open to this sort of new channel as opposed to our more traditional channels. Can it integrate with your CRM? That's kind of our next step, so I'll go into that now. Building your chat channel into your existing tech stack is super important. So for most of us, that's going to be the CRM. And the reason for that is only when we have integrated CRM and chat together can we actually create personalized, helpful, and authentic conversations at scale. If you think about when somebody visits your website, you need to know if that's an existing customer or a complete stranger. It will really change the way you're going to talk to them through these channels. So really, really important part. I'm probably at time, so I'm happy to round up with just 3 takeaways for today. I'd love you to all remember that nearly 90% of consumers in that study across the world would like to use messaging to communicate with your brand. You want to start small by defining one goal or thinking about what friction points currently exist in your business that you can solve with these channels. And then thirdly, picking the best tool for the job and making sure it can integrate to your current systems. And that's it from me.
That was amazing. Many thanks, Kat, for your insights into user expectations when implementing conversational strategy. I took a lot out of that just sitting here and listening. Look, I think this is a trend we're going to see a lot more of, to be honest. Brands want to see, users and brands both want to engage in that more one-to-one relationship. Again, if you have any questions or want to get them answered, head over to globalmarketingday.com, put your questions over there, or use the hashtag Global Marketing Day, and we'll be sure to get onto them. So, heading to the panel over here, guys. Sohan, I think this one's for you. Do you think access to brands via one-to-one messaging is going to change how we look at communication as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that changed really when bots came into play. Before it was so much harder to scale those one-to-one conversations with brands. I remember, we've always, as at onetoone, we've always worked with challenger brands and startups with fairly low marketing budgets. So we had to use things like Messenger, active community management to really engage and create a personal connection with our, let's call it our consumers. So that, as you can imagine, became really hard when your following grows and when more people are engaging and inquiring online. So I think now, as Kat explained, when we've got things like and tools like great CRM systems, messenger bots that you can really curate to your audience, that one-to-one relationship becomes not only more important but scalable. And I think it's definitely going to play a huge part in how we market via social media moving forward. And look, the other part to touch on is especially as ad spends and communicating to your customer via your traditional social media channels go higher and higher.
Sure. And from an agency perspective at No Standing, is this how you've earned the kind of reputation you have in social media, by doing these kind of strategies?
Yeah, so look, again, that was really born from our work in the consumer electronics industry. Again, low margins, low budgets, and we had to figure out better ways to create what we call rabid fans. So we had to find better ways to build authentic connections, and also have create fans that will share what we're talking about, our brands, to their peers. So I guess that's what's made us different is, yes, our focus on building social communities, and really creating trust with our end users.
Absolutely. And Nick, in terms of what role this plays into building our marketing messaging and our SEO kind of strategies, do you think this conversational one-to-one approach is relevant from an SEO perspective?
I think it's absolutely relevant. Like, the thing that I was thinking that whole time was like, oh, this basically just automates all the hard work that we do in SEO, trying to build up the content strategy that maps out for user expectations and user intent. And what you guys do with the chatbot automation is basically exactly that. Like, we talk to the business, we get their business goals, and then we say, like, okay, where do you really want to see this go? then we map out like their target audience, and then we go through and okay, let's build a strategy from that. Let's look at the site. Let's look at the content that you already have. Let's look at content that you may not be ranking for. Let's create that. Let's schedule it out. Like who's going to actually like facilitate that? And what you guys do with that is basically it's just automates all that, which would be amazing. But in SEO, it's a really, really hard process. But yeah, it's mapping it out across like the purchase funnel.
Excellent. And just while I've got you, I can also see your lovely Semrush fingernails over there, Nick. I had to highlight them. I'm not sure if we can get a camera on that somehow, but look at those beauties. So that is amazing. Love the effort.
I came prepared.
So Han and myself as well, we've really let the team down. Sophia wants to know, Sohan, is it recommended to respond immediately if an inquiry comes in at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., or is it more professional to reply only at appropriate office hours?
Look, I guess you can look at it two ways. So it depends if you're a global brand or a local brand, number one. So if you're servicing a clientele that ranges across multiple time zones, then you have to put in solutions and strategies to mitigate that. And again, I think the best way to do it now is we're in a world where we can build such a great bot, right? To at least give the customer or your fan an immediate response. But what that also does is it allows you to, when your team actually gets to the question, it allows you to capture information subtly, and really when you reply from a real person's point of view, reply with relevance. So absolutely, I think we're moving into a very global landscape, and I don't think time zones should matter as much, especially if you're marketing a global brand, and especially if there's solutions now that you can quickly implement to give your customers and your users a immediate response, then I don't think there is an excuse for a brand not to be able to respond immediately.
Absolutely.
Out of office hours are becoming less and less a thing, right? With more flexible working and people choosing their hours. And even if you are working the traditional 9 till 5, like you're still thinking about work outside of those hours. And you might, or if you're a customer and you're really stuck with something and you want to go to that brand and get a question, that's what I love about the bots. They can be on 24/7 taking care of I can't remember what the number was, but like 70% of our support related inquiries are all like almost the same thread. And so the bot can really take care of giving that answer when the customer needs it, even if, we've shut shop for the day.
Yeah.
So
and more importantly, gathering information while you're asleep.
Exactly.
I think on your website it said like for email it's 24 hours to 48 hours of expectation to have that answered, whereas like on like a Facebook Messenger I think it's like 1 to 2 minutes. So like when you were saying like before like 5 minutes, like that is way too long because it's not outside of that 2 minute bracket.
Obviously, I love finding sites that have got bots on them, having a play, and most of the time when I have a genuine question, it's resolved within, whatever it is normally resolved in less than 2 minutes. It's the benchmark that I've been finding, so
and sometimes people just want to vent as well, right? When you have, if you get, we do get the 3 a.m. messages as well, and most of it is, if you get a good enough bot, it's sometimes people just want to vent. So by the time your CM team gets to it, you've solved most of the problem, which is
build out a really empathetic bot, right? Like, I'm so sorry.
We found lots of
Aaron
emojis.
wants to see the manager.
Yeah, correct.
Absolutely. No, I certainly get some very interesting messages at 3 a.m. So glad to hear that I should be replying to those. Nick, Kate wants to know, how do you convince a manager that conversational strategy or one-to-one approach is worthwhile, even from an SEO perspective? How do you convince a manager that is where we need to take our marketing?
Honestly, like from the very start of the conversation, having business buy-in at your exec level is essential to having any of this to work, because they need to communicate to the rest of the team that, hey, we're going to be writing more content. We're going to be taking this to the next level. We're going to basically be creating something that is a little bit more for the user. Like what is our value proposition? What is something that we do that is quite unique? Because like statistically, if we see that we are creating content that answers the questions before they even need to pick up their phone or put in a form submission, they are much more likely to either buy from you or to be familiar with your brand and communicate and connect with you a lot more. So that's why it's so essential from the very, very start to get buy-in.
Absolutely, and that can be a difficult thing, getting buy-in for these different strategies. Yeah. I would know all about it.
This might be playing devil's advocate, but like some of these tools now to build the bots are so simple to set up, and execs love data, right? If you were like, it took me a couple of hours every week that I was happy to just put in as an experiment and look at what we got, just in initial experiments. Like, I'm a big fan of asking for forgiveness and not for permission sometimes if I really believe in something, but that might be a little bit controversial.
Show them how you're going to save them money.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, pick a goal that you think is going to be the most meaningful for the business with these tools. Just test it out. It's so easy to get started with many of them.
Absolutely, and it becomes a lot of agencies' role now to actually have a part in that process of determining what are the key kind of objectives that we're going to be able to do if you are implementing these kind of tools from an agency side or even in-house. What are the kind of objectives that we're looking at measuring? So certainly. Another. Stephanie's got a bit of a comment and a question.
Yep.
So first of all, great session. Would you advise the use of automation bots aside from the website if you're not an e-commerce brand? Like, let's say when you're a B2B company.
Outside of the website, so via social?
So via social or...
Yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. Probably even more so the case because, they're not... You're trying to get a customer to go from engaging with your brand online to purchasing from a bricks and mortar location or purchasing a service that they haven't necessarily experienced. Some of our most successful campaigns have been around creating awareness, building engagements, and building relationships and shareable relationships with brands outside of e-commerce.
Absolutely.
So, I can give an example from running sales. So we have a retail client called Harvey Norman Clearance Center. They don't have a e-commerce store. They have scratch and dent products that come in and come out and have to be posted and sold within the same day or the same amount of hours. So we run things like messenger sales. So, upload a voucher, bringing the voucher to the store, so you're connecting a digital relationship with a physical relationship, and that wouldn't happen if we didn't go to the effort of actually creating a bot, creating a relatable persona for your brand, and then finding a way to convert that customer.
Absolutely, and it's really cool to see you guys as an agency doing all those things from a social media perspective, and quite refreshing as well, to be quite honest. So lastly, to kind of wrap things up, Nick, how do we think that we can identify people better? How do we know who to target through a contact form, who we should be looking at through a one-to-one strategy, and how can we identify that person better and track them through things like analytics?
Yeah, well, I know for an SEO perspective, like it's all from keyword research, but for business and things like that, communicate to your sales staff. Like, they're the people that are actually like client-facing or user-facing, and they really have the most intimate understanding of basically what their audience needs and what they're asking. So, have a chat with them, see the kinds of questions that they're asking the most about, and create content around that. Actually write them down. Go to Google. Yep. Plug in those questions and actually see what comes up. And this is where you can find opportunities of maybe finding a little gap where you can create something that specifically goes after that question, and you can rank number one for that one within a couple of hours if you do it really, really well, where you're actually answering their questions. So that's sort of where I would sort of take it with SEO.
Absolutely. No, it's great to see how that ties into an SEO strategy, because so often it can be shoeboxed into its own segmented part and often forgotten about. So great to see people like you, Nick, that are figuring out how to involve it with other channels and other initiatives. So fantastic. And look, what a great session to end my time hosting the Semrush Global Marketing Day. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you. Kat Warboys, Head of Marketing of HubSpot, of course, Australia, New Zealand, amazing. Nick Ranger, SEO Specialist at Studio Hawk, and of course Sohan, the CEO of No Standing Digital. I also want to thank all you guys on screen and off screen for being part of these sessions in Sydney. We've massive appreciation. We've seen so much amazing stuff coming through, and we want to see you guys keeping it up. Remember to use the hashtag Global Marketing Day and chat about your marketing strategies in the ever-changing communication age. We are trying to make it easier than ever for you to understand what strategies so that you can build your brand, your business, and bring it all together to have it all in one place with Semrush. So without further ado, let's bring on the next presentation.